What an amazing intro. How is everyone doing? Excellent. Right. So I'm gonna kick it off a little bit here soon. My name is Erik Andersson, ambassador to Hendrick's Gin here on the East Coast. And we are going to make some cocktails here today. So just a couple of house rules here. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them out in the chat if you like. Adjust my camera a little bit. And we will address them along the way. And we also have a little Q&A towards the end. So excellent. It's great to be here talking to you all. So Hendrick's Gin. As I think many of you have tasted Hendrick's Gin before. It's a Scottish gin distilled and bottled in the southwest corner of Scotland, in a small town called Girvan. And it's infused with roses and cucumbers. So that is the first little unusual fact about the gin. But before we get mixing, I wanted to give a big shout out to BYOB, who is hosting our session today. Thank you very much for letting us come along and mix with you all. And it's a real pleasure to be with you this Friday afternoon. It's actually a cocktail hour now. So the first drink that I thought I'd mix with you is the Ricky Milano. So it's a little twist on a classic cocktail that I came up with a few months ago. And you know, the Gin Ricky is a classic cocktail here from the Northeast, actually from DC, but it has that's considered Northeast still, right? Almost. Anyway, it's a classic cocktail here from the East Coast, and it's gin with fresh lime juice and club soda. But as we all know, bartenders these days, they like to make twists on classics. So I'm going to make a little twist on this this classic cocktail here. We're still sticking with 2 parts of our Hendrick's Gin, Hendrick's Original, and the 3/4 part of the freshly squeezed lime juice. So we know fresh is always best when it comes to cocktails. And for this Ricky Milano, as the recipe suggests, it's a touch of simple syrup in here as well. But I'm going to be so bold, so I actually add a little unusual and extra ingredient in this drink, which is 1/2 ounce of Campari. So you may not ask, like, what is this all about? It wasn't even in the recipe. But I want to let you know, like, this whole thing of making twists of classic cocktails is becoming so popular in the bar. So it's something that I thought I would share with you as well. So if you're making a twist of the Gin Ricky, which is the Hendrick's Gin with fresh lime and club soda, maybe you want to put a splash of limoncello in there. Maybe you want to put a touch of raspberry liqueur, or whatever touch of a flavor that you like. Feel free to make your own Gin Ricky and accordingly. So I'm just gonna give this a little stir right here. My garnish in this is a slice of lime, because we have lime juice in the drink. So that's my first drink. I'm gonna take a little sip. Pinky. There we go, and put it right here. Not on my laptop, I think. It's not a very good idea. Anyway, so yeah, and as mentioned before, if you have questions, just pop them in the chat, and I can actually monitor that here on the little side here. So yeah, so Hendrick's Gin, it's a classic Scottish gin, or like a modern Scottish gin, you could say. Gin hasn't been around in Scotland for very long. It's been distilled in England for many years, as we know, for over 200 years. But the Scottish are more crafted as the whiskey distillers, as we know. And at William Grant & Sons, we have the Glenfiddich and the Balvenie single malt, of course, Monkey Shoulder blended malt whiskey as well. So our company actually started as a whiskey distillers. But we created Hendrick's Gin in '99, and as we know, it's become quite successful around the world. So we have, in the gin, we use 2 different stills to distill it. So we have a Bennett still and a Carter head still. The Bennett still gives us a very rich, big, bold distillate. And the Carter head gives us a much lighter, more floral distillate. And when we blend those 2 together, we get the balance of the 2. After we do that, we add the essences of roses and cucumbers. So it's a little bit elaborate to make Hendrick's gin, to be honest. And our master distiller, Leslie Gracie in Scotland, she's done a terrific job with kind of puzzling the recipe together. And she, by the way, she was the person who created Hendrick's gin originally in 1999, and she's still the boss at the distillery. So in the southwest corner there in Girvan. But so that's Hendrick's gin, and I have another recipe for you that I was bartending in London many years ago, and I came across a recipe called it's either an Eastern lemonade or like an unusual lemonade. And I thought I'd make a little twist on this cocktail for you all today. I'm going to add a little bit of ice in my glass first. And this one also contains fresh lime juice, about 3/4 ounces like so. And we also have our 2 full parts of Hendrick's gin. I have these really new fancy penguin pourers that you can find in our little tiny shop. I'll pop in a link there in a minute for that. So the an unusual lemonade, absolutely great drink. Fresh. This is technically kind of a limeade, I suppose, but lemonade's also an amazing drink here in the summer. And as we all know, it's still pretty warm and humid up here. So lemonade is a great way to get that little refreshing feel. But this drink has a bit of almond syrup in it. And if you look in the store, you can find this bottle, which is, and it says Orgeat. I think the light is a little bit strong. I'll pop it in the chat later on as well. But there we go. So the almond syrup gives it a little bit of a nutty flavor, but also, of course, a bit of sweetness. So this Orgeat mixes really well with ginger beer. So I'm going to top this drink with there's a touch of ginger beer here.
I didn't add the simple syrup.
Sorry, come on, one more time. Oh, there we have it. Thank you. Yep. So Orgeat together with fresh lime works really well. And because this is a bit of a herbal cocktail, I like to garnish it with some fresh mint. When you have fresh mint at home, you get like a big 1 or 2 really big sprigs like this, and then you can just take them and release the aromas, and they smell amazing. I wish we had smell-o-vision here on Zoom. I don't think it's invented yet, but maybe one day. But it smells absolutely lovely. And then, of course, since Hendrick's is infused with cucumbers, I'm going to garnish this with 2 slices of cucumber, like so. Oh, we're quite full here. Lucky me, I brought a straw for this one. Cheers. That's an unusual lemonade, or and the Ricky Milano right there. 2 quite straightforward cocktails, but they're really, really good now here in the warm summer months. They're refreshing, and yeah, something that I really, really enjoy making right now. My favorite cocktail is actually the gin martini, but I really can't. It's just a little bit too warm right now, so I'm sticking to these 2 today. Awesome. Yeah, that. It looks pretty nice, and it's so easy these summer months to find very good fresh produce. So I really encourage you guys to, if you're going into the supermarket, to get a bunch of fresh mint, an English cucumber, and some fresh citrus juice, and make cocktails at home for the weekend. Because you know, when winter comes and you know, the fruits, they become they're not quite as nice and crisp in the winter. So it's a great time for fresh summer cocktails. I hope we can come back and make some stirred, a little bit more stiff drinks later on in fall. That would be great, actually. Yeah, so this one is really refreshing, I'd say. So I'm gonna pop the little straw in here. And also, you know, when we drink cocktails, we drink with all our 5 senses almost. So we see the cocktail coming towards us. We can hear the, you know, the twinkling with the straw and the ice. We bring it to our nose, we can smell it. And then we can have the texture and the temperature of the drink before the 5th sense, which is the flavor. So that's why this big mint garnish, it's not only for looks, but when you stick your straw in here, your mint ends up in your nose and it smells absolutely delicious. So that I can really recommend to have some big garnishes like this. Yummy. That one tastes amazing. But feel free to shoot any questions on the gin. It's quite an unusual type of gin, and we have had, you know, we've stuck to Hendrick's gin, the original, for many years, and we didn't make any variations. But the last few years, we started to make a couple of them. And we started off with a gin called Orbium, which had quinine and wormwood. And then it moved on to another one called Midsummer. But I want to bring in a little bit of a sneak peek for our summer or next year release, which is the Hendrick's Lunar. So it's not released yet in America, but next year, early next year, it's going to come out, and it is an absolutely delicious gin. So that is, it's a little sneak peek of what's to come from Hendrick's. I'm going to hide that one back there. But you saw it here first. No, so it has been released in a couple of countries, but it's a very limited edition, and I hope you guys can get your hands on it when it releases here. So that's super exciting, and I'd like to share another recipe with you all. Oh yeah, in a traditional Negroni, Hendrick's works amazingly well because it is really well-rounded. And I also like to make a little version of the Negroni, which is the summer Negroni. When you, if you don't like too much Campari, you can sub in the Aperol instead of Campari, and a Bianco vermouth instead of a sweet vermouth, and then it becomes a bit lighter. It's a really nice way to flip those classic cocktails around a bit. But I have here my favorite recipe, and if you have your copy and paste ready for your chat, then if you like to make martinis at home, and now when these colder months are coming, you know, they come faster and faster, so you all know, they and if you want to host some guests at home and serve them all martinis, you can actually pre-bottle a Hendrick's martini and put it in the freezer. So when you have maybe 6 guests coming over, you can just pour the martini perfectly chilled and diluted already. So what you guys do is that you would put, let's see here, I have posted in the chat here, if you take a full Hendrick's bottle, and then you take an empty one, and you pour out about 10 ounces from the full one into the empty, okay? And then you take your full, the one that you started with, and then you put in 5 ounces of water and 5 ounces of dry vermouth. And then you just turn that around a little bit so it mixes, and you stick that in the freezer. So when you take that out, you can just pour it straight into a martini glass, and it would be a perfectly chilled, perfectly diluted martini. And then you just add a slice of cucumber, maybe a twist of lemon, or if you would like an olive, and drink it. It's a great way of hosting, and it's also a little trick to show off as a professional bartender at home. Well, it's actually not that hard. So that one I can recommend. Vicky is asking if it's best shaken or stirred. I really prefer to stir my martinis. If we're making, so imagine if you have like 1 or 2 guests at home, you might want to make it in front of them. I prefer to stir it. The reason I do that is because I don't want to dilute the drink too much, and I want to have perfect control over the dilution of the cocktail. So the martini is not only supposed to be as cold as possible, the reason is that it has to be perfectly diluted. It's really important. So it's not too diluted, but it can't be too strong either. So that's why I think stirring is a bit better. And you don't really need to shake it because the ingredients mix as well anyway. And so Hendrick's is infused with roses. And how we do that is that we take a bunch of rose petals. So they are called the Rosa Damascena, or the Damascus rose. And we take these rose petals, we wash them with alcohol, and then we extract the alcohol and redistill it under vacuum. So basically, we extract the oil in the rose petals with alcohol and take that alcohol and then redistill it so we get a rose concentrate. But we try to put that rose petals in the copper still for Hendrick's. It doesn't work. So the roses has to be distilled separately under vacuum and low temperature because they're so fragile. When you distill juniper berries, like when you're making the gin, you can use quite a hot type of distillation. It's it's coming up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, but the roses can't really handle that temperature. So we distill it in the vacuum, low temperature, and then infuse it afterward to put it in the gin and kind of mix it that way. And we do the same with cucumbers. So crush the cucumber, mix it with alcohol, redistill under vacuum, and infuse it in the gin. So that's the trick how to make Hendrick's. And like I mentioned, it's not really straightforward, but Leslie thought that this was going to be the way that she makes the gin. So that's kind of how we make it in Scotland. I am going to type up here. If you are on the famous Ginstagram, you can of course visit at Hendrick's Gin when we post recipes and other fun things there. I also have my own Instagram at Young Mr. Flanagan. So there will be a lot of recipes and more cocktail videos on there if you want to see that. And I hope you enjoy that. So I'm gonna have a little more sip of this. Amazing. That's really refreshing. What cocktail are you guys making at home maybe tonight or this weekend? Just pop it into the chat and I would be inspired by that. Maybe I'm gonna make one as well if you do. Cool. Well, excellent. Oh, the briefcase. Yeah, absolutely. The briefcase is actually, where is a little puffin from Reka Vodka? The briefcase is actually a description of how we distill the gin. Let me see if I can do this for you. I can film it a little bit. Without tipping over anything. So here you have the Carter head still, the really tall one here, and then the Bennett still, and then the third still here next to it is called the Carrick still, which is an imitation of the Bennett. So those two on your left. Sorry, on your right, they are the same, and then the Carter head is this really tall one here. And after that, we infuse it with the cucumber and roses. Wow, that worked. We thought it would actually. Amazing. And yeah, I might have my chef jacket here for when I'm bartending. This little my home bar setup. So I'm making another recipe this weekend probably. It's called the strawberry stargaze, I think I'm gonna call it, with a bit of maraschino and strawberry. So that's gonna be my next recipe. And yeah, I'm gonna share that on my Instagram as well. So if you're interested, please do follow that. Here we go. Oh yeah. Wine Whiskey Holic. I'm seeing that. A little Ginstagram there. Right. So the Gin Palace. So this is a question from Vicky again. We have at Hendrick's we built the distillery in '99 in Girvan, but since the world demand for Hendrick's became so big, we had to build Leslie Gracie a slightly bigger distillery. So we decided to build her little Gin Palace. It's not a huge palace, but it is a little bit bigger than the old distillery. So at this Gin Palace, we now have a beautiful Mediterranean hothouse and a tropical hothouse. So in those hothouses, Leslie can grow her own botanicals and experiment with new variations of Hendrick's. So that's how she's coming up with these new variations called the Lunar, Hendrick's Lunar, or the Midsummer Solstice that we have currently. And we also managed to install a second trio of copper stills that we are using as well now. But they are all imitations of the old stills that we have. So the old copper stills that we started off with Hendrick's, it's the Carterhead, which is a very rare still from 1948, and the Bennett still, which is it's an antique still from 1860. So those are kind of the fundamentals of what Hendrick's is and how we made it from the beginning. Then, due to popular demand, we had to replicate those a little bit. But yeah, so we moved the distillery. It's only about less than 1,000 feet, basically, from its original location. And we had to tear down a little whiskey warehouse to build it there. But so in Girvan there, we have the Hendrick's distillery, which is not maybe the biggest one, but the one that's closest to my heart at least. But we also distill the grain whiskey for Grants there, and we age all our Grants whiskey around on that site. So it's right on the coast there, and we're also experimenting with some new malt whiskies out there. So it's super exciting location. Whilst when it comes to our malt whiskies, which is the Balvenie, Glenfiddich, and a third distillery as well, we have those up in Dufftown, which is in the heart of Speyside. So we are kind of making spirits in two different locations in Scotland. And we have a question here: is gin healthier than wine? So we wouldn't say that gin has any health benefits. It's not healthy per se. Some of the botanicals in the gin has been used as medicinal herbs in the past, like juniper berries have been used as medicinal herb. But when it comes to the gin, we wouldn't say that that is healthy. So it's still a spirit, and it's 88 proof. So we should always enjoy the unusual responsibly. And rather spend time on making an amazing, perfect cocktail than making and drinking two not so good cocktails twice as fast. So that's sort of the cocktails that we that I like to make here in the summer. I have another. So martinis, Negronis, of course, are some of my favorites. Another one that I really like to make is it's the Aviation, and it's a classic gin cocktail with Hendrick's gin, a little bit of maraschino, violet liqueur, and fresh lemon juice. That's a great cocktail. And the last word is also really, really good with green chartreuse, maraschino, and fresh lime. And we have a lot of Hendrick's gin cocktails on our website as well. I'm going to pop that one in the chat just in case. I'm pretty sure you can imagine what the website is, but just in case, I'll pop it in there. So you can check out the cocktails from there, and then you have a little bit more information as well on our new variants as well. Well, the British Navy was having gin on their ships, and it was predominantly the lime that was used to prevent scurvy, but they needed to mix the lime with something, so they were drinking it with gin. Well, the officers were drinking gin typically, and the sailors were drinking rum. But they definitely had a lot of gin on those boats, in the ships. The best way to make a gin fizz, I really like to shake it, shake the gin fizz, but I don't like any egg white in it. So gin fizz is a cocktail that has a couple of different variations on it, but I would say 2 parts Hendrick's gin to about half a part of simple syrup, 3/4 part of fresh lemon juice. You shake that, and in the shaker you add a little bit of club soda. So what you do is that you shake the drink with ice like that, and then when you open it, shaker, you pour the soda in here, and then you strain it into the glass. And when you do that, it mixes really fast, but it also it mixes really fast, and it also doesn't dissolve the bubbles too much. So that's my way of making gin fizz. The gin fizz and the Tom Collins are very, very close cousins when it comes to recipes. I think some bartender once said, "Can I have a Tom Collins and a gin fizz, please?" And the bartender makes 2 drinks, and and the guest asks, "Which one is which?" And the bartender says, "You tell me." That's how similar they are, really. Some people say that the Tom Collins is a little bit sweeter than the gin fizz, but it's just not that big of a difference, to be honest with you. So that's that. I mean, the gin fizz is really a cocktail that is, there's so many variations of cocktails that sprung from the gin fizz. So I don't think many people are actually ordering that cocktail as much these days, but bartenders are making a lot of variations of it. But maybe the gin fizz is making a comeback. I know the gin Ricky is making a big comeback. So that's a really exciting one, I think. And if you, as anybody into Bloody Marys, or Red Snappers rather, you know that you have the gin Bloody Mary is actually called a Red Snapper. So my favorite recipe of this drink is that you make a little spice mix with all the spices for the Bloody Mary, but you don't put any tomato juice or gin in there yet. You just mix up the spices. You keep that bottle in the fridge, and then you just add tomato juice and gin and drink it, and maybe some fresh citrus. And here is that recipe. A lot of text there, but it's a really, really good recipe that I'd like to share. I've tried frothy or other pasteurized egg white emulsifier. Yeah, frothy is, I would avoid that one. I think it's lots and lots of chemicals in there. If you don't want to use fresh raw egg white, which is completely safe, by the way, but if you don't want to use it for some reasons, you can use aquafaba. It's a chickpea type of, it's made from peas. So that's a really, really good sort of supplement for raw eggs. But I wouldn't use frothy, no. I put it there in the chat so you can copy and paste the chat there, because it's a lot of text and a lot of stuff to go through and read it. But that's my favorite way of making Bloody Marys, basically. Awesome. So I am going to share a little bit more with your own cocktails. And if anyone would like to ask more questions, don't hesitate to do that. What I'd like to share with you is a little story. So I started off on Hendrick Gin about 8 years ago now, and we are a small team at Hendrick Gin here in the US. We are a big company, really, and a big brand, but we're only 3 brand ambassadors actually. So we have here on the East Coast who is looking after the whole country as a national brand ambassador. His name is Vance Henderson at VT Wise Guy. He is has a lot of amazing content on his Ginstagram as well. So do give him a little follow there. And we also have my brother-in-arms who worked together for almost 4 years now, Marius Dylan Horseman, who is the brand ambassador in the Central. And he lives in Dallas right now, but he also has a lot of great cocktail videos and recipes on his Instagram that you can follow. And I really like that. But so for when it comes back to coming back to Hendrick Gin a little bit, just to recap slightly, we have it was launched in '99, distilled and bottled in southwest corner of Scotland, and it's infused with rose and cucumbers. So the gin itself, we have this wonderful cabinet of curiosities, and we are launching some really cool innovations early next year and beyond. So, and I hope that now we can pass all of this 2020 with COVID, so we can all get back to, going to our favorite bars and making our favorite cocktails at home. So on that note, I will raise my unusual lemonade here, and it's a little Swedish English toast here. I'll read it in English, and it just says, never above you, never below you, always beside you.